Welcome to Smart Social Secrets Tips with Cami Heza and my guest today, Ken Jacobs. Hi, Ken.
Hi, it's very nice to be here.
It is. I was having such a great time. You were educating me behind the scenes before we started. So I love how smart you are. You're smart on so many different topics because we were talking about you're talking about musical theater. I mean,
What,
crazy.
I know a little bit about a lot of things. There's no
Yeah,
doubt. Okay, I'm going to own this. I'm a total theater nerd, theater history, all
that's
all that great
fantastic.
stuff. So I'm going to educate you.
Yeah. So, hey, if you're a theater nerd here, make sure you let us know in the comments that you are also a theater nerd. Let
Please.
me know.
It's my
I'll be watching for
people.
your
It's my
comments.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know you're here in the comments, comment, and we will be interacting with you throughout. Um, Ken Jacobs only had an hour to give or half an hour to give to me. So we're going to like rush through what we're doing here. So a little bit, but leading in the age of uncertainty. I really wanted to talk about this with you specifically because you have taken on all of these leadership qualities and you're teaching executives, like people that run companies like myself, how to implement them into their businesses. And you focus on communications people that are in communications. And I just wanted to start with why, like why
Well, it's
communications?
it's it's easy. That's the business in which I grew up. I was in PR, got into agency management early, leadership relatively early. It was my people. It's where I was known,
Mhm.
maybe not as well known as I would have liked to have been when I started, but it
Yeah.
just made sense to serve the community in an industry in which I had grown up. And over the years, I've thought about, well, I could coach and do training for accountants and doctors and NASA scientists. And while
Mhm.
that may be true, there are still a lot of agencies. I'm not yet working with a lot of there's so what are there 8,000 or 10,000 agencies
Mhm.
in the States, so many leaders. So for me, it just makes sense to serve that group. And we know PR people are great. PR people are
Yeah,
great.
I love this community. I mean, that's why I
Mm,
serve them too. I
yeah.
mean, I have an agency and I have a lot of great clients, but often my clients are the communications staff at a company. Like I tend to work with the comm staff or the marketing staff, but
Yeah.
it leans towards the communications PR staffs at different companies. And so I love working with people in our industry because people are so they're smart. I mean, that's number one. Like you can really talk to them and they can understand exactly what you're trying to get across. You don't have to explain why it's important to communicate effectively. They understand that. So I love how bright and how much are, especially on the public relations side, how much people want to make a difference in the world, and also a lot of my marketing friends. So I tend to attract that, Ken, a lot of people
Yeah.
that are like that. So I know you're going to be right at home here. So
Oh,
we
I'm
have a lot to go through.
always.
We have 9 traits that you have outlined in this ebook, which I read over the holidays. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And so it's a very fast read. It's an ebook, but it gives you these traits with some really great further research that you can do. And also it offers the opportunity to meet with you too, Ken, which I think is amazing. You give out you meet with people to do a strategy session, which I think is
Mhm.
fantastic what you do. But there's 9 traits. I'm gonna go through them real quick, up front, just so you know. First one was emotional intelligence. Second one was energy is reciprocal, which I really love that one. Um, Third one is transparency, which I'm really excited to talk to you about because that can mean a lot of different things. Um, Superior performance versus perfection, which is one of my big pet peeves, is
Mm.
for myself too. I've had to overcome a perfectionistic streak. Set high standards for your own leadership, which is basically learning, right? Always learning, putting yourself there, and increasing your empathy. And that's interesting too, because I think that's important, but it's hard. Like, what does that mean? Talk less, ask more, which I'm going to start doing here in a minute. I'm going to talk less just in a second. Um, Lead with courage and then accept uncertainty. So I'm going to really quickly go through some of these with you. And I have some questions. I have questions. Are you
Okay.
good?
I'm
All
good.
right.
I love
Cool.
questions. You're
All
as
right.
you said, ask less, talk less, ask more. So there we go.
Yes. So, one of the things you mentioned in the book for emotional intelligence, which was the first one, is that that emotional intelligence accounts for 90% of what sets high performers apart. To me, that was like, wow. I mean, I knew that was probably true, but that's a big number. And that
It's
was in research, right?
That's a Harvard University study, and there was a similar one at Google. And the notion is you have leaders doing well, and you have what I call uber leaders, super leaders, just killing the metrics, and not just for themselves, but their
Mhm.
people, right? Their people are just killing metrics, exceeding expectation, all those things. And so they researched, is it tech knowledge? Is it information? Like, what is it? It's emotional intelligence. And that's just two of many studies. The Google one almost surprised me more because you would think, well, Google tech knowledge and
Mhm.
comprehension, all those things are
Tech
so
bros.
important. But even at Google, it is emotional intelligence that creates this huge gap in performance. So that really caught my, as I always say when I talk about this isn't some let's all link arms and sing kumbaya,
Mhm.
though we could do that at the end, in light of our musical heritage. But
Yeah.
um, but it is a very real thing. And I would say ignore it at your own risk. If you want to be a more effective leader, you must increase your emotional intelligence.
Right, and a question I have is, don't you think, especially in the communication side of the business, that most people might think they're really good at this already?
Well, when you think you're good at it, that might mean you need to do a little work on emotional intelligence, because if your reaction is, "Ooh, I'm curious, what might mine be? How do I use it in leadership?" Da
Mhm.
da 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 da, shows me you're already a little more emotional intelligent. And if it's, well, I'm already good at that, that might say it's time for you to take the assessment and see how you really score.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say that real quick. I put it in the, notes in this live stream. Wherever
Great.
you are, you can find it unless you're on Twitter/X, which is another funny thing about emotional intelligence. But, one of the things that you recommended one of the things you recommended was Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which is a book. I immediately put it into my, like, Google cart, I mean, into my Amazon cart, like, as soon as I saw it on there, I put it in my cart. So definitely do that for you as well. I have a link directly to it, to Amazon,
Great.
because it has an assessment in it, right?
Yes, it does. I mean, the bulk of it is the assessment and recommendations. You buy it, and I have no relationship with the author, though Travis Bradbury and Jean Greaves,
Mhm.
you really should connect with me because I've been talking about the book and the assessment for 3 years, 4 years. Um, you only read a
You need to have them
chapter
on your
or
show.
two. What's that?
You need to have them on your show.
If they
Yeah, you
only
should
would,
try.
they should,
They
shouldn't
should.
they?
Well,
But
you should tell them how much you admire them and how much you want
I
them on your show.
I do. That's a great idea. Thank you. So at any rate, there's not much reading to do. You take you get a code in the back, you get a free assessment, and it takes 5 minutes, and then it spews out when you hit submit
Mhm.
2 minutes later. Um, and I was a little cynical about it for a few reasons because I use other assessments in my work, but
Mhm.
nevertheless, I was very cynical and I took it, and it spews out these recommendations, which are also in the book. And I always say it was like a blueprint of my mind and my heart. It was so spot on.
Oh my
And what
gosh.
I
I'm
love
definitely
about it
doing that.
is it's really easy, right? Your scores show up in 4 quadrants. I always say, my score was strong in 2 areas. One, I had a few watchouts, and one was like, oh my gosh, you've got to do something about this if you want. But what I love is the recommendations of how to improve are easy and practical. So, unlike a lot of business books, which I find a little pie in the sky, this is like you use it, you take it, you see your areas, you know where you need to improve. The best news is that I was, because I'd been recommending it and I'd taken it so long ago, I reread it and I found the
Mhm.
nugget that said, you can take it again. And so many years had passed. I've been working on my emotional intelligence. And I like to think, as being an energy coach, a leadership coach, your EI goes up. And I took it again. I answered honestly. Any assessment you take, you must take honestly to get value from it.
Mhm.
And my scores went up, especially in my watch out area. So I felt
Mhm.
really good that you can change, that I could change.
I love that you can take it again. What value? That's such great
Right.
value.
Well, it's two
And
times. I believe it's two times.
Eric is asking a question here about how can neurodiverse leaders exhibit emotional intelligence? And one of the things I brought up to you in my notes was that Elon Musk, who I actually heard a really great interview with Walter Isaacson, who is the author of
Mhm.
his book that he did, his biopic, and he followed him around for like a whole year, and he did the same thing with Steve Jobs. Anyway, the
Yep.
point was is his point was that Elon Musk is brilliant. Like he's so great as an engineer and he has a really good understanding of the tech and the things that need to happen. But yeah, his emotional intelligence, he mentioned that it wasn't that great. So which shows up all over the place
You think?
through what's happened at Twitter/X. So it's a good question, Eric. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So, Eric, I'm not expert enough in neurodiverse leadership. Maybe that's something I should research a bit more this year. I just don't know enough about it. I know something about neuroscience and its impact on leadership and change, but not neurodiversity. So I don't want to guess.
That's good not to guess, but I think that's
No.
great to ask, and I think it's a good
Yeah.
thing, but I think that, the emotional intelligence test or assessment would show
Assessment.
you where there's some weaknesses potentially. I don't know.
Oh, you'll know the areas in which you want to make, well, if you want to make change. Look, change is
Yeah,
up to all of
yeah,
us. If you
yeah.
embrace that I can be more effective as a leader if my EI is higher, and there's proof of it. And to your case study, there's proof of quite the opposite, as I'm sure the big FU to all the advertisers. That didn't go down well.
Yeah,
It didn't go down well.
and there's somebody asked their what your top tips were for emotional intelligence, but we have to move on because you
Yes.
can read the book for the top tips because they're in there, and, I wanna make sure we get through all of them. So energy is
And I just want to
reciprocal.
point out, they are fine-tuned to you. They are the emotional intelligence tips for you based on your score. So I love that.
That I think that's amazing.
Mhm.
So number 2 is energy is reciprocal, which I really love that idea, the idea that it's contagious, like your energy when you walk into a room, which I think we kind of or I kind of know that instinctively. Not everybody does, but one of the things I've seen recently is this relentless focus on positivity, like maybe almost at the ignorance of like anything being wrong. So this I've heard the word toxic
Yeah.
positivity, ignoring bad things, putting out positive messages, spin, spin, spin. It happens a lot in corporations. I'm just, things are. So that's my only concern about energy is
Yeah.
reciprocal. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So I get concerned when people talk about toxic positivity because I seen people using that phrase as an excuse to be negative.
Yeah.
Being negative never gets you what you want. And here's the thing: is an organization, is it positive or negative? There's so much between, on this various spectrums between what's positive and what's negative. And the reality is we create our own realities. So we can look at something, interpret it a certain way, and if that interpretation doesn't benefit us or the organization or people, you look at it another way, look at it another way, let's get away from the black and white of positive and negative. And I think in our lives, about ourselves, about our peers, about our followers and our bosses, it sounded very New York, didn't it? Our
It did.
bosses, our
Bosses.
leaders, right? Let's,
Yeah.
instead of going for that, let's think, okay, well, what's working in their leadership style? Let's do an inventory of what works for their leadership style or the organization. Let's spend some time on that, because when we do that list, we realize maybe things aren't so bad. Then we look at not what's negative, but what do we want to be improved? What do we
Mhm.
want that to look like? When your brain gets away from it's negative, it's bad, because the brain says, okay,
Mhm.
I'm done here, let's shut it down. Well, that's not
Mhm.
going to lead to change or improvement.
No.
But if we say, what are the outcomes we want? What does that look like? Our brain engages and our brain goes into constructive mode and starts to think about, here's what we could do better and different. And I think if we bring that to the mindset, that's much
Yeah.
better. As I talk about, if you saw last year as challenging, you'll feel challenged and your team will. If you look at 2024, maybe not as challenged, maybe even not as uncertain, but a year of opportunity. What's the opportunity? You
Mm.
bring that as a leader, that will be contagious as well. So it's energy, it's mindset, it's everything. The question is, do you want to take that first step and bring energy and doable optimism to the equation?
Mhm.
I think we get
Yeah, I
better
think
outcomes.
that's really, I think that's really important, and it almost brings me to the 3rd one, which is transparency, because in order to be positive, you also have to be transparent too, because you can't pretend that things aren't happening
Yeah,
that are.
yeah.
So that's number
When
3,
yeah,
transparency.
when I was a leader, I was afraid that if I shared the bad news, it would create fear
Mhm,
among my people.
mhm,
And so I held back, right? But there's
mhm,
all this research now, especially from the Neuro Leadership Institute and others, that when leaders are transparent about their decisions, about a situation, et cetera, it creates a sense of psychological safety. Can you imagine?
mm,
It's the
yeah,
opposite of what many people think. So I always say, if you think of what we've been through in the last 3.5 or now 4 years,
mhm,
boy, we could all use a dose of psychological safety. So that's one of the reasons for being transparent. Another is companies and leaders that lean into transparency tend to have better numbers, better metrics, better performance, better stock price, better customer relations. I mean, there's every reason to lean into transparency, I think.
I think that's really powerful. Those 2 go together really nicely.
Mhm.
Number 4 was superior performance versus perfection, and I was gonna say a few years back, I realized with my kids especially, when they did something well or something happened, I said, "Oh, that's perfect, that's perfect." And I realized it was a problem whenever my oldest son started being like he has this perfectionism thing anyway, and then I felt like this I was leaning into that a little bit because I'm a perfectionist, I guess, and so I guess even in my own children, I figured that out. And so I started breaking myself of that habit by trying to give like very specific praise that was specific on the, noticing traits and qualities. And so I'm wondering if that's kind of what your suggestions would be for employees and working with your employees. How do
Yeah.
you get away from perfectionism and move towards, encouraging superior performance because we want good performance, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think part of it is accepting perfectionism doesn't work. It might
Mhm,
come as a leader from a good place. We think we're enhancing performance. It's quite the opposite. Because if you think about it, perfect is impossible. Perfect is impossible. And
mhm,
so when we encourage or demand or suggest or any of the above perfectionism, we are encouraging and demanding the impossible. What does that do to your
mhm,
followers' brains? What does it do to their morale? And we're living in an era of employee, dissatisfaction, disengagement, unhappiness. So when I'm encouraged by my boss to strive for the impossible, what does that do to me? What does that do to my loyalty to the organization or to that leader? I can tell you it's not good. It's not good. So step
yeah.
number one is recognize it in yourself as a leader and stop doing it. Stop doing it. It doesn't help. I think to your point, being willing to be perfect. No, being willing to be specific. Wow, Dr. Freud. Being
Yeah.
willing to be
You're
specific,
talking to my soul here.
right, about all the things that they've done well. I think sometimes we go, when we talk about constructive critique, we go from constructive to critique really fast and we never go back. But
Mhm,
let's remember, the more you reinforce what they've done well, you're going to get more of that behavior and performance in the future. Let's take the time to tell people what they're
yeah,
doing well. And then
yeah.
when we leaders have to correct either performance, behavior,
Mhm,
whatever,
Mhm.
rather than say, here's what you did wrong, here's what you did wrong, which just, we get defensive, we put up barriers, we're not listening to you when you tell us that. Instead,
Mhm.
say, next time, here's what
Yeah.
superior performance looks like. Next time, when you make it about the future, people don't have to be defensive, and then
Mhm.
they're
Oh,
open, and they're
I love the
open
next
to
time.
that.
Such a great tool. Next time.
It's a
Yeah.
little hack, and it works.
Or
It
even
works.
like, I'm not good at this yet, like, or
I,
whatever.
have you heard me
Mhm.
say that before? I'm such a big
No.
believer in that.
Yeah, I am too.
Absolutely. Oh,
I also say that
wow.
perfection is the enemy of done, because I would
Yeah.
spend a lot of time worrying about the perfection of my own, um, performance, and, like, it took me longer to get stuff done than it should have because I was so concerned about that. So, yeah, I've had to really work on this one. This is one of my weak areas, so I've had to work on it pretty hard. I feel like I'm doing better, but I'm still, it will always be a challenge, I guess, but an opportunity.
Let's do a little laser coaching. How true is that
Sure.
really? How true is that
Mm,
really? I mean,
not
just
as much
because things
anymore.
just
Mm-mm.
because something happened in the past doesn't mean
Mhm.
it will happen in the future.
That's a good point too.
I'm sending you a bill. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
Thank
kidding.
you. Okay. Yeah, please send it. I'll give you my address after we're done.
Okay.
Um, Set high standards for your own leadership. And in your book, I'm not going to go through them all. You had 8 potential questions to
Yeah.
ask of yourself, which I thought a self-assessment. I always worry about self-assessments because it's like, well, what do you focus on for a self-assessment? So what I love about your book, which by the way, I will put up here as you go here. So if you guys want his book, make sure you go
Thank you.
here to get it. And I'll come back here in a minute and give it to you again, but I'll leave it up for a second. That to me was really helpful that you had these um very specific questions, because I think as leaders, it's just like, I've seen people overassess themselves, underassess themselves. Like, how do you get a good self-assessment going?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a start. It's a start. You add first, you say, how did I perform in some of these area? Did I
Mhm,
demonstrate I had their back? Um,
mhm,
did I earn their trust? Did I convey that I
mhm.
trusted them in return? I'm not going to go through the whole list. You
Yeah.
start with that. You grade yourself, and then you think, how would my team grade me in these 6 or 7 or 8, however many areas I
When you
have?
say grade, like 1 to 5, or what do you mean by grade?
Well, I think most of us growing up in the US school system, it's A minus, A,
Ah,
B plus,
yeah.
B. I mean, I just think that's how many of us are wired. And
I
then
guess I went to
over
Likert scale. That just shows you how my brain is.
okay. And then you say, but I want to be sure, how would my toughest graders grade me? Because that's where your growth
Mm,
comes as a leader,
mm,
acknowledging, if you have people on your team who are willing to grade you and share performance feedback with you and
mm,
help you get better as a leader. And I was very blessed to lead a few people who always told me their truths in a
mhm,
very kind, diplomatic, direct and honest way, made me a better leader. So you go
mhm,
to that. So you start with all of that. And if you're not happy with some of the grades, then you say, okay, that's what I'm going to work on. But I think the counterbalance to that is to be getting anonymous feedback on your
mhm,
performance as a leader from your teams. Why anonymous? We can do one-on-ones. It's very nice. So let's say Cami works for me. Cami, how am I doing as a leader? Are you getting what you need to? And
mhm.
Cami, knowing that I have an impact on her title and promotion and
She
salary
may
and
not say
bonus,
what she actually thinks,
may
yeah.
not speak her full truth, may
Yeah.
not speak, and that doesn't benefit
Mhm,
anyone. Whereas if
mm,
we go anonymous, I mean, Cami may have some very good feedback from me, but we've got to get it anonymously. I mean, I can think I have an open door policy and I'm an open door
mhm.
leader, but I'm not going to get what I need unless I
Well,
perform.
and I'm just gonna I know I shouldn't interrupt you, but I'm gonna
Yes, you
ask this
should.
because
Yes, you
we only
should.
have a few minutes here. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
one
amazing.
of the things I'm really concerned about there is if you have a small team, they can't really be anonymous. And also, I've heard people on the corporate side tell me, I can't put my truth in there. I can't write, like, the extra stuff. Like, I can answer the 1 to 5 or yes or no or whatever, but if I write in something that's gonna be self-identifying.
Yeah,
So, I
I
know that
yeah.
there's a Yeah,
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think you
concerned
have
about
to
that.
try to write your questions in a way that protect confidence, lead to anonymity. When you send it, you make a point
Mhm.
of saying, please be specific, but not so specific that I know who this is. Like, don't say, gee, when we
Mhm.
were at the client meeting yesterday morning, this happened, because I'll know it's you, right? And then I
Yeah.
think you can encourage them in that essay section to talk about
Mhm.
what they would prefer in the future, again, rather
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
when you did this, this was bad. And I think those things combined can help protect some anonymity.
So we have 5 minutes, and I have, like,
That's
4
not
more to go.
that's not
So
possible. That's not
I know,
possible.
I know. It isn't. So the 6th one is increase your empathy, which I think is important. I think that's gonna be different for different people. Um I've heard the problem, like, I don't want this to become this huge therapy session. Like, what does that mean for empathy? Because I mean, people go through things in their lives. I always,
Yeah.
with my team, and they know, hi, here, some of them are watching. We try to share what's going on in our lives, and it really did help through the pandemic. So I'm just going to give an example there because we work in social media, and you can only imagine how beautifully negative many of those
Oh, Lord.
encounters were.
Yeah.
It was toxic for them most of the time, and so, we were trying because we work in healthcare too. So, I mean, you can imagine. So, it was bad. So, we were trying to make sure everybody had, like, mental health, like, so we got in the habit of checking in, like,
Yeah.
not just
So,
about, like, work things.
yeah, I think checking in is important, but a big therapist session without a therapist is not what we want. So
Mhm.
I think the sharing can be good up to a point. I think, well, two things. Empathy really comes to bear in the one-on-one. That's where you have to try to understand what the person is thinking and feeling. And if you want
Mhm.
the definition of empathy, Daniel Goleman, Goleman, he's one of the experts in really breaking down. There are different types of empathy, and we kind of go through an arc. We don't have time to go into it here. And I think when I think of
Mhm.
organizations supporting mental health, to me it's, are you giving people time off? Are you respecting when they don't check email? Are you, if you can afford to give them benefits related to physical health, are you encouraging
Yeah.
whatever they need? Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, walks outside. You can do, if you're together at the same company, doing a walking meeting together, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think
Walking meetings are cool. That's a
yeah,
cool
what's
idea.
really critical is that if you're encouraging people to do all of this stuff, they've got to know you're doing it for you. Self-care
Mhm.
starts at the top. I always say this is
Yeah.
why when you're flying, you put your oxygen mask on before the people, your traveling companions.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
must do it yourself, because if the leader says do this, do that, and yoga and hours and whatever, and they said, oh, I had a 13-hour day yesterday, oh, I'm so stressed, oh, I only got 5 hours of sleep last night, like it's a badge of courage, followers. What's the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that I love? What, as a leader, um, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying, right? So if you're saying do these things, but you're not doing them, why would they follow suit? And I think we've proven over these last 3 to 4 years, self care at the top, encourage it throughout, and you will see a benefit.
That
You
is
will
so
see.
good. I actually had an employee once that, I was staying really late at night for other reasons, like, I was staying after, like, I was doing some personal things, but I would stay after work and do some personal things, and I realized he would stay until I left every time, Eric,
Mhm.
and I finally said, "Why are you staying so late? Like, you can leave at, like," I think it was 5 at the time, "You can leave at 5." And he's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, I said, "I'm not really working right now. I'm, like, doing some
Yeah,
personal things,
yeah,
and I just use this space because it's quiet. I leave, like, leave at 5, it's fine." So
yeah.
it's almost like, and he's like, "Oh," and then he just left at 5 from then on. I couldn't
Right.
believe he was staying with me till, like, 6, 7 sometimes at night. I'm like, "Why are you still here?" Anyway,
Yeah.
tell
As
less,
many of you
ask
know.
more,
Oh,
7. I'm sorry, I'm
yes,
gonna move on because we're almost
yes,
out
yeah,
of
I
time.
understand.
Tell
Your
less,
podcast.
tell less, ask more, which I think this is a big one.
It can be so hard. We tell, we train, we teach. We both do that. it's not as
Yeah.
effective as it might be. People might nod and say yes and take notes, but I always say, do they have skin in the game? Do they have
Mm,
brain in the game? The only way to have brain in the game is to light up the part of the brain where things like I want to get it right, creativity, collaboration, passion, action, and memory live. I think it's those five.
mhm,
And so, of course, we want to light those things up. How do you do it? By asking open-ended, empowering questions, not telling, asking, but open-ended. That's how you engage that part of the brain. That's how you really get them thinking. And that technique, tell less, ask more, is effective for leaders. It's effective for coaches. It's effective for leaders who want to bring more of a coaching style, which is more effective, into their leadership. So sometimes telling feels better. That's ego.
mhm,
I told Cami what to do, but I'm not being effective as a leader. I've got to
mhm,
engage Cami's brain through question. Now I've engaged her brain. Now she's coming up with solutions. So, there, to be an effective leader, you give up on the ego a little bit. It feels
mhm,
great to tell people what to do. Fantastic.
mhm.
Not as effective as it might be. So why would we do it?
It's because I think it feels comfortable, to
Yeah.
do it, and definitely as a consultant, which I am, I would say this is probably an area for me that I think this is an area for me this year. I bet you this is one of the areas where I'll have to work because I tend to just teach, that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Interesting.
look, and
Okay,
that's
so
one.
uh-huh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm just
Well, I
saying
was
we're
gonna,
almost out of time. So go
I
ahead,
know.
finish.
The one
Alright.
that's one of the distinctions between consulting and coaching. And like you, I'm both. And I'm very
Mhm,
mindful when I'm in a coaching session, ask, 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 ask. When I'm consulting, I try to bring a coaching style into it. I try to bring a coaching style into it because I know we'll get greater performance. So I want to address Race's
mhm.
point. I know it
Yes.
can feel tough with the pace of work. Keep your mindset of what's going to get me the solution fastest, the most effective solution, the best creative, et cetera, et cetera. And when you realize that, you will get your team coming up with effective solutions more quickly. And I would propose, Raisa, that
Mhm.
that is really what you want to do, especially because if we're in this fast paced work environment and we've got to do something again and again and again and again because they're not getting it, because I'm telling them, I would say
Mhm.
experiment with this. Can I recommend a book that's not mine?
Yeah.
That is The Coaching Habit, Say Less, Ask More, Change the Way You Lead Forever. Can I show it? Michael Bungay Stanier. Is that allowed?
You
And
can, and
then
I
I have
have it I actually have it in I actually put that in the,
see that?
also in the, thing because I got
And
it from your thing. So the coaching
I
habit, there's a link to it.
Michael Bungay Stanier, I have no relationship with him other than we're both coaches, and I've seen him do a webinar. He's amazing. But I've
Mhm.
I've recommended it to every leadership session, every client, and they tell me the title is not a hyperbole. I'm changing the way I lead forever. So that's the opportunity
Right.
for Raisa and everyone.
And
Change the way
Rachel's
you lead
already an
forever.
incredible leader, just so you know. I mean, I know her, so I know she is.
I'm
Like,
going to
she's an
connect
incredible
with her.
leader of a incredible agency. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I would just say that in the end of the day, f from my perspective, what I found is that and I think it's just for me, like, what I do myself, like, when I do something the first time, it's hard and it takes a really long time and I don't do really well with it, and then I do it again and again and again, and of course, then I
Mhm.
become an expert, right, over time. Um, that's when I have to work with my team too. I'm like, "Okay, if I do it for them, if I continue to try to, like, pull everybody along, it is exhausting." It's, like, emotionally and physically exhausting, like, you really burn yourself out trying to, like, keep
Sure.
everybody moving, by
For you and for everyone. And the thing is, what is our responsibility as leaders? What's our leadership legacy? I always say, in the PR cemetery or graveyard, no one's tombstone said they doubled their budget. I mean, it's great if you can double a budget, mazel tov,
yeah.
you're a good, agency person. But
Yeah.
I think of the leaders I've worked for: Jean Way Schoonover, Barbara Way Hunter, Agency Glass Ceiling Breakers, Marina Marr, Lenore Cooney. They brought out something in me, and and they saw something in me, and my loyalty to them is eternal. And I think of the leadership lessons they share all the time, all the time. And so that is part of their leadership legacy. I think that's what
Mhm.
it's really about. And that's the satisfaction of leadership. When you've, I think I'm quoting Kim Sample here, when you get your team to do something they didn't know they could do, then you're a
Yeah.
leader.
Oh, wow. That is incredible.
Yeah,
That one's
Kim's the head of the PR council now, used to be the council of PR firms. And
yeah.
I just think that's so, and that to me is, that's leadership. That's why I
Mhm.
get such joy from this work, thinking
Yeah.
I in some way are helping people in this space be better leaders, be inspiring, create a leadership. I mean, I had a good PR career, Silver Anvils, the whole bit, but the one and only Wonder Bra. Don't get me started. And
Wonder Bra, I know what that is.
one and only Wonder Bra. But I will tell you, the fulfillment I get as a leadership
Mhm.
coach. I mean, the PR career was great, but for me, I can't. And so many PR people and agency people go into coaching. It's interesting. I think, going back to something you said earlier,
Mhm.
whether it's about our need to serve or improve or make the world
Mhm.
a better place or bring out the
Yeah.
best in others. So, if you're looking for a leadership coach, find one that's certified by the ICF.
Mhm.
And if you want to find one who, has experience in PR, not because they're going to
Gotta
coach
be
you around
you.
PR, but I think there's an empathy that and a
Mhm.
connection that happens.
Well, that's why I bring you to my audience because, I very much trust your way of doing things, and I've known you for a long time, and I
Yeah.
trust you. So,
Oh,
the 8th
that's
thing
nice.
we have 2 more and we're almost done. We're almost done.
Good. We're okay.
We're on
I'll
the home
stay as
stretch.
long as you want.
Okay. Lead with courage is the 8th one, and you mentioned some amazing names, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Malala Yousaf I'm not gonna say the
I
last
just
name
we just
right.
call her Malala. She's the only Malala,
Malala.
right? Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi,
Yep.
Harriet Tubman. These are your what you call role models of courage. Of course, I can't even imagine even going to the kneecap of one of these people as far as courage goes, because they risk their lives for their
Yeah.
beliefs. So, um, we can't all be Mahatma Gandhi or Abraham Lincoln. So tell me, like, how as an agency owner,
Yeah. Well, we
like
can, and they were all clients of mine. That's how old I am. No, I'm kidding. We know that's not true. We know that's not true.
I thought you were gonna say
I'm just,
Methuselah. I'm just
I
kidding.
jest. I jest. Um,
Yeah.
but I think we can take lessons
Mhm.
from them
Yeah.
in that it's not, when you look at their writings, it's not that they weren't afraid. They had fear and
Yeah.
walked through it because they felt, I think, this obligation, this sense of purpose to end slavery and bring the country back from the Civil War, and a nonviolent campaign for independence against the most
Mm,
powerful power empire at the time. And I
mm,
think because of that vision, and they knew they couldn't do it alone, they had to inspire people. I think they learned to walk through their courage, keep that eye on the prize against amazing odds, against violence,
yeah.
against Malala being shot in the head because she wanted uh, women in the Near East to be educated, right? Um,
Mhm,
and I think we need to think more about that. The reality is,
mm.
followers follow courageous leaders. It is literally like a magnet. Like if you had that game as a kid with the iron filings and the beer and the magnet.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh,
I'm living
yeah.
my baby boomer moment right now.
Mhm.
But it
Yes.
is like that. And so to walk through your fear and live your courage gives courage to your followers, even if you're just at an agency. and your followers are account supervisors or account AEs. I think it takes courage to be in PR. I think it takes courage to be in an agency, to speak your truth to clients, as an example, and to one another. So I always say determine who your courage heroes are. Mine are from the world of history because I'm a theater nerd and a history nerd. But we all have
That's
courage
awesome.
heroes in our families,
Yeah.
friends, people we've worked for. My God, I mentioned Marina Marr, the bravest
Mhm.
person on this planet, I think. Um, or I've had courage heroes who worked for me. I've mentioned as a leader, I had some fear, but I was very fortunate that some people who worked for me were very brave. And that aligns with them telling me their truth about what they needed from me as a leader. So courage, courage, courage. It will always serve you so well. And if you have fear, lack of confidence, any of the above, do some work around it. Read the right
Yeah.
books, hire a coach, go to a website, go to a few websites, because people do not follow leaders who are afraid. They just don't.
Yeah. So Eric, I this is a very courageous person in my opinion, here in Houston. Yeah, so he's worked on, inclusive gender policies. Um, so yeah, I think so, Eric. I mean,
Oh,
you are very courageous, my friend.
bravo to you, Eric. Um, and though it felt like a teeny bit of courage, who knows what it led to? Who knows
Mhm.
how it made someone else in the company or the organization feel courageous? But I think, a lot of this comes in little bits, and that's okay as long as we're leaning into it.
Yeah, I think that's so, so important. So we're down to the final one, 9, and that is accept uncertainty, which I think we fight against it, right? Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not sure what it's gonna be like, this is gonna be a
yeah,
terrible year, that's gonna be or what, we could go into recession. I mean, there's always
yeah,
this fear. I think people often lead with their fear.
yeah.
They lead with what they're fearful of and, like, what they don't understand and what they're fearful of. So, could you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
I want to start with some good news. I think
Yeah.
things feel a little better economically, a
Mhm.
little more certain than they
Yeah,
did when I
they
wrote
do.
the book.
They do.
So I'm knocking wood for that. That's like my shtetl mentality, like I'm knocking
Yeah.
wood, like some ancient
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing. But um, but that said, if most of your listeners are in PR and social media, we live in a world that's uncertain.
Every
Stuff
day.
happens, bad stuff happens. And so I think if you expect that, you expect the unexpected, you know that as a leader, it's easy to lead when everything's easy, right? Though,
Yeah.
gosh, when was the last time it was easy? 2019. But it's easy. Your test as a leader, your leadership medal is tested when uncertainty happens. So if
Mhm.
you know in advance, stuff's going to happen, we're going to be fine. It is my job to lead our people through this. And if you embrace that, and you also embrace that you can either respond to with, oh my God, oh no, and your team, because of what we said before about it being
Yeah, it
contagious,
was n I
they're,
forget
they're
what
going
the
to
number
follow
was.
suit. They're going to follow suit. Well, that's about mindset. So that's
Energy is
contagious.
reciprocal too. 2,
Yeah,
number 2. Yeah.
exactly. Um, Whereas if you as a leader can say, wasn't expecting that,
Mhm.
what can I learn from this? What's the opportunity here? You put your brain into creative mode, into a positive mode. Say, I'm the leader. What do I want to do about this? And I always use this with my clients and just people. Say, what do I want to do about this now? Emphasizing I, because I'm the
Yes.
leader,
Yes.
do active verb now in this moment. No overthinking, no and paralysis by analysis. What will I do now? And I find if you embrace that, you are able to rebound a lot more quickly and have
Mhm.
your people feel that confidence. And it lets them know we weren't expecting this, but we don't have to worry about it.
Well, and then there's a sense of accomplishment if everybody comes around that vision. So, I've seen a lot of corporate leaders say, this is terrible, like,
Ugh,
low earnings or whatever, and they're like,
ugh,
"You guys go out and you need to fix this. You all need to fix this. You all need to fix this. We need to fix this." And
not
so what do you
leadership.
do then? Like, what
Well,
do you
that's
do?
yeah,
So I like the
yeah,
the I statements are also very good in psychology. We're
yeah.
taught use I statements. I don't know why we don't take that to our leadership.
And I think a leader who uses you've already absconded from leadership, right? I
Mhm,
think instead a leader says, here's the vision, here's the goal. Yes, there are
mhm,
hurdles. Here's what I need from you and you and you. And how can I support you in that? Oh, and here's what I'm willing to do. And here's where I need
mhm,
you in the boat with me. So that kind
mhm.
of mentality
Yeah.
is also magnetic and gets people to think we can get through it. Yes, it may be tough. It may be challenging. And a leader, and I think a really courageous leader says, look, you know, this this was not what we expected or wanted. I need you in
Mhm,
the boat with me. Here's the strategic path forward. And let's talk about your role in it. That's one thing. If you're really courageous and be willing to say, I don't know, but here's what I think, or here's what I
mhm,
feel, here's what I intuit, depending on your language style and what's going to work with
mhm,
your followers. Here's the path I see. Need you in the boat with me. And if you're really, really, really courageous, you say, here's the path I see. I don't know with certainty it'll get us there, but guess what? Halfway through, two-thirds through, three-quarters through, if we're off a little bit, we're flexible, we're adaptable, we'll change course and we'll get there. And I know that. So, by those kind of statements, you're talking to no need to fear, flexible,
yeah.
adaptable, we'll get there. And if it changes, we got it. We got it. And people believe what a leader, embraces. And that goes
Yeah,
back.
they want to believe, right? They need something to hold
Yeah.
on to. I mean,
Yeah.
I love it when we make a plan and we work through the plan and people do what they're supposed to do in the right spots, especially if you have a leader that you can trust that they're gonna do
Yeah.
what they say they're gonna do, which is, not always easy.
No,
So,
none of this is easy, but
no.
highly challenging and highly fulfilling when it works.
Yes. And so next steps are go grab your book. So you can go deeper into these 9 steps. I did have a couple of resources that were in the book, including 4 books, which all of them I'm going to be reading again. So you had, well, I put one on there too. The one about Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. I think you should read it, even if you hate Elon Musk, because I feel
I'm
like
so afraid to read
understanding.
it. I'm afraid to read it. Maybe
Don't.
maybe
That's
I need to
I'm
be more
challenging you.
courageous.
I'm challenging you because we can't just put our minds in a certain mindset, right? Because that is a neurodivergent leader, and we need to see
Yeah.
where we're at with that. So that's number one. Number two, the Give and Take book by Adam Grant that you put on there.
Uh,
I think you put that in your books. I love Adam Grant in general.
hey,
Anything he writes,
yes.
I read it. But the Give and Take, I think, is a really good book, and so I put that on there as well. The Coaching Habit, which I hadn't seen before, by Michael Bungay and, yeah, Michael Bungay Stanier, I think you say his name.
Staying I think it's
Anyway,
staying here.
Stanier? I don't know. Anyway, it's an older book. It's print on demand. I mean, so it's a little bit older, but it's got, I put that definitely on my list because to me, this is my year of learning how to be a better coach. And emotional intelligence, I'm 100% there. I mean, I'm gonna be taking that assessment in the next
Good.
week or 2. Um,
Excellent.
and I give all that to you. So that's in that small book. It's a very fast read, guys. Like it's only, I don't know, 14, 15 pages. I would just highly recommend it's free. Download it, use it. You have some other ones there too. So look at all the books he has on offer. There's 4 sitting there. So take the one that makes sense for you. But thank you so much, Ken, for coming
Oh,
today and spending,
thank you.
half an hour with me and my audience. I know they're very appreciative. I already see they've been very much so. So, and my dad was even here. See, you got my dad here. Hi,
What?
dad. Yeah. This is my father. Hi, Dad.
Thomas C.
Um,
Watson. Thank you. Wow. I'm
yeah.
like, wow.
So that's incredible. If you're still here, Dad. Mwah. So that is everything. If you have any questions for me or Ken, put them in the comments. We'll keep in touch wherever you're at, and I'll let Ken know if there's something and alert him. And definitely, it's the year for leadership, guys. We are smart. We are brave. We can do this. We can learn how to be better. And Ken is going to help us, right?
Thank you so much. Find me on LinkedIn. There are many
Yes.
Ken Jacobs there. I'm the one with some initials after my name.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of initials. And I did put a link to his
Thank
LinkedIn
you.
profile also in my
Thank you.
notes upstairs. So I've got notes. Go to my notes section, read it. I got a lot of stuff there for you. A lot of goodies. And thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to be back next week I haven't decided what I'm doing next week yet, but we're going to be talking next week. So plan to be here next Thursday. I'm back. I'm ready to go. I'm raring and hopefully you are too. So talk to you
2024.
guys soon. Yeah,
Thank you.
2024. Take care.